Welcome back to Equity, TechCrunch's flagship podcast about the business of startups. I'm Rebecca Bellan, and this is the episode where we bring on industry experts to help us explore a trend in the tech world and dive deep. Today, we're bringing you a conversation I had with Aron D'Souza about the Enhanced Games, the sporting event that D'Souza says will overtake the Olympics. Why? Because athletes can use whatever substances they want to get bigger, stronger, faster, better. It's backed by Peter Thiel. It's offering $1 million to break world records. And yes, this is actually happening next year in Vegas in May. D'Souza and I dig into the business model, the longevity angle, and his views on everything from demographics to human enhancement technology. It's a complex, wide-ranging discussion that goes well beyond sports. Aron, welcome to the show.
Rebecca, thanks for having me on.
So give us a little bit of your background. Like, you have I would say, controversial, interesting past. You were, you have been for many years Peter Thiel's lawyer. You were behind the Gawker case, helping bring down the media company after they shared some things that they, some would say they probably shouldn't have shared. So I'm curious, like, that's not who you are as a whole person. What else are you doing? And if you want to say anything about that.
Yeah, so I started my professional career about 16 years ago when Peter Thiel hired me to lead the litigation against Gawker Media. I was at that time a 24-year-old law student at Oxford University. We went on to win, I'm very proud to say, the largest invasion of privacy judgment at the time. It ended up bankrupting Gawker. Since then, I've built nearly 10 startups, some successful, some unsuccessful. Today, I lead the Enhanced Games, and that is my passion, drive, and singular focus.
And so walk us through what the Enhanced Games is, because some people might just think, oh, it's athletes on steroids. But I think you would say that it's a lot more than that.
Yeah, so sports is unique in that it is the only industry, as far as I can tell, that has a hard technology cap. Because of the monopoly control over sports governance by the International Olympic Committee, they created a set of rules in the 1980s that mandated that certain substances like steroids or testosterone or EPO are banned and therefore not allowed to be used in international sporting competitions. As a consequence of this, human progress, and I really mean the physical human progress of our species, I believe has been stunted because we cannot demonstrate the efficacy of scientific and medical advancements in the most obvious way, which is on the sporting field.
Okay, so on the sporting field, and this is becoming quite an event, right, that you're planning out, right? You've got a $1 million bounty for breaking world records in 100-meter sprint and 50-meter freestyle. Is it $500,000 total prize purse per event, $250,000 first place finishers, and you've just signed a big name. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, we've just signed Fred Kerley, who won the silver medal in the men's 100-meter at the 2020 Tokyo Olympics, and he won the bronze medal at the 2024 Paris Olympics. And he has achieved, I believe, the 7th fastest time in the 100-meter that any human has ever done. And so with performance enhancements, I believe Fred has the best shot of breaking Usain Bolt's 100-meter world record, which I am in no doubt to say is the most important world record because every human being, every able-bodied person has tried to run 100 meters. And there's something very intrinsic about this one competition to show who is the fastest. It's a very ancient competition. I believe that when Fred breaks that 100-meter world record in Vegas next year, it will be a watershed moment to show that enhanced humans are better than ordinary humans.
And how old is this athlete? Like, I remember when you and I have spoken about this in the past, you said that a lot of the times, actually, the athletes that'll be competing are older than typical athletes because drugs can kind of expand their ability to perform at peak.
That's right. So Fred, his birthday is on May the 7th, 1995. And so he will be 31 years old when he competes at the Enhanced Games next year, which is really 5 or 6 years past one's prime as a sprinter. But I would note that Christian Galomev of Greece, in an exhibition event earlier this year, broke the 50 freestyle world record in swimming. And Christian is 31 years old, which is about 10 years past his prime as a swimmer, which is pretty amazing. Think about that. The fastest swimmer ever in the history of the world is 10 years older than one would normally expect. Why? Because he was able to use the best performance enhancements under comprehensive medical and scientific oversight.
So Enhanced Games isn't just about these games, right? So the way that you've spoken about it to me, it's about pushing the boundaries of what a human is capable of doing. It's really about longevity, right? It's part of the longevity movement. So one thing I'm curious about is you're using athlete data to inform clinical discoveries, but these are athletes, not normal people. If at the end of this, really what you're trying to do is promote longevity for the average person, how is having that really intense peak athlete data going to help you understand, the other people, vulnerable populations, for example?
Yeah, I think it's about technology diffusion because what is suitable for a world champion athlete like Fred Kerley or Christian Golomev becomes a therapy which is useful for people who do, various boot camp or high rocks or CrossFit, and then becomes more suitable for more sedentary people or those that are of older age. So ultimately, improving the best athletes in the world shows us the ceiling of human performance. And so when the 4-minute mile was broken by Roger Bannister about 50 years ago, this was a major human achievement because we had thought that breaking a 4-minute mile was somehow impossible. But actually, after Roger Bannister broke that record, within a year, more than a dozen people had broken the 4-minute mile. And so part of this is about inspiring ability to see someone who's in their 30s, maybe even in their 40s, run faster than Usain Bolt. I think will be a mental paradigmatic shift, even in the absence of pharmacological enhancements, that inspires our ability to perform better as a species.
We've talked about this as, there's a real business model behind this that's not just this is games, right? You've talked to me about Red Bull, right? So Red Bull, they do their kind of really big sporting events where it's really cool to see people doing crazy snowboarding and what have you. And it's all sponsored by Red Bull. And this serves as sort of like marketing for the actual product, which is the drinks. And they make almost, what is it? You said 100% of their revenue on their drinks. So what's your drink?
Yeah, so the traditional sports revenue model is to sell tickets, media rights, corporate sponsorships. And we do those things, but they're not really that important to us because ultimately our business is like Red Bull. We use sports marketing to sell, in our case, a 90% gross margin human enhancement product, which is a telehealth service like Hims, Hone, Roman, or Maximus do, except for the fact that we have the evidence that the best and fastest athletes in the world use our protocols. And therefore, our revenue streams are very different from a traditional sporting league. And I think this is actually why enhanced sport is going to take over natural sport, just as sports betting was frowned upon in American sport just 20 years ago, and now is almost overtaking television revenues as the major revenue line. I believe that enhancement products, because healthcare is such a large percentage of GDP, will become a major revenue driver for sports properties.
Interesting that you compared it with sports betting. I feel like that's not the one we want to compare it to. I don't know. I think it still is frowned upon. I mean, sure, it's making a lot of money, but I don't know that we want a generation of young men betting their hard-earned wages and possibly potentially losing them, but that's besides the point. So do you have a protocol? Do you have a his and hers? Like you've raised $300 million as of May this year. What are investors investing in? Is there a product aside from the games? Or are you kind of like drumming up the business, doing the marketing first, and then leading to the product?
We haven't raised $300 million. That was misreported by Bloomberg.
Ah, okay. How much have you raised?
Yeah. Double-digit millions.
Billions? Millions.
Millions. No, we're not OpenAI. Double-digit millions.
All right. Well, still, you've raised money. Like, where is this money going? What's your team made up of, right? Is there a lot in R&D? Do you have a lot of engineers, scientists? Like, where are you putting the money?
So I've built 10 companies, and the number one indicator of success of a business is talent density. Can we acquire the most talented people in the world to come and work for our organization? And why I'm so confident in the success of the enhanced games is that ultimately the best employees as well as the best athletes want to come work for us. So, the number 2 person from the US Olympic Committee, Rick Adams, he left that role to come work for us. Top scientist from Red Bull, the top clinician from FIFA, have all left those roles to come and work for us. And we have a team now about 40 people at head office, and really all at the very, very top of their game. building this organization because they see the potential not just to reinvent sports, but actually upgrade all of humanity.
Upgrade all of humanity. Yeah, this has been a thing. We've talked a lot about on the podcast about the longevity movement, about a lot of the consolidation that's happening. Right, Aura has made some acquisitions to be able to improve the amount of tracking they can do. I mean, longevity covers a lot of. It's everything from like preventative, right, like testing on your body, to tracking, to something as simple as Brian Johnson's protocol, which from what I can tell is get a lot of sleep and exercise regularly and hang out with your friends. But I'm curious, why is this something that Silicon Valley billionaires are obsessed with, right? You've got Peter Thiel backing you. He's also in the company. I don't know if PitchBook was wrong about this. You've got 1789 Capital
No, that's
backing
correct.
you. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
yeah.
Okay.
Donald Trump Jr.'s fund.
Yeah, Donald Trump Jr.'s fund, which 1789, we talked about this before. There's actually two things that happened then. That's what I think that the American Republic started. It's also the year of the terror in France when they started during the French Revolution. So it's a lot of, anyway, so it's Donald Trump Jr.'s VC. It's very conservative, anti-globalism, anti-ESG, pro-defense, pro-onshoring. There's this movement, I think, among conservative parties as well, which is a little surprising, to boost health and longevity. Why do you think this is happening now?
Well, I think that the longevity movement is really taking off because if you look at the European economies, which are so lauded by the left, and actually dig into their economic model, it's deeply unsustainable because demographics are collapsing. Germany, Italy, Greece, Portugal all have some of the oldest populations in the world. And public policymakers have no idea how to solve this problem. And so on the right, if you're, as many people are on the right, against immigration or mass immigration, you end up with a demographic model that looks like Japan. And I'm actually in Japan at the moment as we're recording this podcast. And you notice, it's quite evident that people are really old. And the average age here is older than in more than any other country in the world. And so, how do you reconcile the desire for economic growth with an anti-immigration modality? Well, the solution has to be longevity and human enhancement because there's no other way. We need a young, working, tax-paying population, and that doesn't stack up with low birth rates. And so the technological solution is human enhancement. And that's why people like Peter Thiel and Donald Trump Jr., who are both very, dare I say, obsessive about the demographics of the nation, understand how important this industry is.
I'm curious about a few things there I want to unpack. One is that my cynical read from, a billionaire perspective is not that they actually care about the world being healthier. It's really that they want to live longer themselves and solve this for their own egos. So basically what you're arguing is that people need longevity drugs so that they can work longer, extend their working age. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, I think I'll preface this by saying that I believe that human enhancement is going to become mainstream, not from mandates from, the health department, but it's going to be from Treasury. As you can see, the president today is trying to lift the retirement age for Social Security. And that's a really hard political conversation. The whole Maillot Jaune protest that happened in France almost every summer because Emmanuel Macron is trying to raise the retirement age. No country has succeeded in significantly raising the retirement age, despite the fact that human beings are living longer and longer. And so I think this is where the enhanced games is actually very important on a cultural level, because if we see an athlete who's, say, 60 years old, who can run a 10-second 100-meter, I don't think that will happen next year, but that will happen within a decade or two. That's going to change the political and cultural conversation about when we should retire, because 65 as a retirement age is a purely arbitrary deadline that was in fact invented by Napoleon as a way to trick his army into getting trading a pay raise for a pension.
Yeah, it's interesting, this idea of so we have a shrinking birth rate, so why not help people work longer? But isn't that the promise of AI and robotics? Isn't that what we've been hearing from the Sam Altmans, who's also invested in some longevity, and Peter Thiel's, et cetera, in Silicon Valley writ large, that soon we won't have to work, or that AI is going to soon replace all economically valuable work once we get AGI. I mean, this is I guess we're like prepping for a future we don't know will come.
Well, I actually think that we have two options about the future. We have the Sam view of the world, which is that AGI will come, it will replace all the humans, and then the humans are basically a second class species because there's a superior species in the machines. And I think the inevitable consequence of that, which Sam won't admit, is that humans are irrelevant. The alternative paradigm is what I propose, which is that there's a competition between man and machine. The machines are getting better in real time. And because of outdated regulations, particularly by the International Olympic Committee and the World Anti-Doping Agency, but also the FDA and EMA, human enhancement is stifled. And so we aren't able to upgrade fast enough to compete with the machines. Now, my goal is to ensure that humans can remain competitive with the machines. And so if you think of it, it's like AGI is set, the standard of AGI is probably of an ordinary human adult. Can a machine be better than that? Well, the ordinary adult trains for about 30 years to become an active member of the workforce, works for about 30 years, and then retires for about 30 years. And with just a small amount of human enhancement, we can take that 30 years of work and maybe make it 35, make it 40 years. And that, in terms of total contribution to productivity, is extreme, right? Because it's not 5 or 10 years at the front, it's 5 or 10 years at the back in our most productive, most valuable years. And I don't know about you, Rebecca, but I don't want to end up in a retirement home, crippled, old, unable to care for myself. I want to be young and strong for as long as I possibly can be. And that truly is the promise of human enhancement. So there is a self-centered reason why the billionaires want this technology, but there is also an altruistic reason why it benefits our society as a whole. And I don't see why we should have anything but a massive global effort to enhance our population.
Clearly, there's a movement for longevity in the US because we see how broken the healthcare industry is, right? It's so difficult to actually get the care that you need that people want to take it into their own hands, right? Mm-hmm. But the people who are most able to do that are the wealthiest people, right? The people who can afford to do so, right? The biggest determinants of health and longevity are, as Brian Johnson said, it's getting enough sleep, it's having time to spend on your friends and family, it's getting sunshine, it's eating healthy food. And people who are poor, which is the majority of Americans who are living paycheck to paycheck, they can't do that, right? Like they have to work like dogs to just make ends meet. Half of them live in food deserts. They can't access healthy food. I think that this is a really interesting move, but like to most Americans, is it just give you a pill and you enhance yourself? Like there's got to be other things to create like a structural system that allows people to actually live their healthiest lifestyle so that they can be good little workers and that they can want to have children and not bankrupt themselves, right?
Yeah, and actually all of the sociological phenomenon that you have just pointed to are largely addressed by the European social welfare states. Free access to medicine, public health care, public schools, public housing, all of these things, this comprehensive welfare state. But as Emmanuel Macron knows very well today, the European project is struggling because of demographics.
Right.
And the European project, as we know it today, probably only has another 10 or 20 years of survival. The solution that public policymakers have had to the demographic crisis in Europe has been mass migration, which has created a whole new set of social issues. And which has caused the rise of the far right in Europe that is now making anti-immigration a central part of their messaging. And so to have your cake and eat it too, the only solution is a technological one of human enhancement. And this is why I find this deeply surprising. My deepest critics, the deepest critics of the enhanced games are European. Right? They're European sports bureaucrats, sports ministers, and they say the enhanced games are wrong. Athletes should not be using performance-enhancing drugs. And I say to them, you need to not just enhance your athletes, you need to enhance your whole population because your demographics are failing. The far right is going to get in. They're going to ban mass migration, just like Nigel Farage is going to do in the UK. The AfD is going to do it in Germany. Marine Le Pen is going to do it in France. And you're going to end up like Japan, right? You're going to end up like Japan. No immigration, collapsing demographics. The Japanese people will cease to exist in 200 years' time. In 2 centuries.
Heavy statement there. I'm curious, though, if we want to take it back to the games and longevity movement and your model.
Oh, well, let me make an important point.
Sure.
So Brian Johnson's a great friend of mine, and he is the greatest proponent of longevity. And when I first told him about the enhanced games, he was like, Aaron, you got me. Because for Brian to be proven correct will take a century. He has to be the oldest living human to be proven correct, which is a very hard task. For us to be proven correct, we'll fit in a TikTok. If Fred Kerley breaks that 100-meter world record in May of next year, everyone's going to say, wow, a 31-year-old who was the 7th fastest man in the world is now the fastest in human history through enhancement technology. What can enhancements do for me?
One thing I find kind of interesting about what you and I have spoken about before is this idea of like autonomy over like choice over what kind, you've said in your ideal world, like you can choose to be taller or you could choose to have other enhancements, right? Like that, you're not necessarily against trans people because like, why shouldn't you be able to choose your gender, right? You can we have all the science to back our ability to make these choices for ourselves. Why not have it? Why not just order off a menu?
Exactly. So I believe the most fundamental human right is not freedom of speech or freedom of association. It's the freedom over our own bodies. Adults with free and informed consent should be able to do to their bodies what they wish. I should be able to choose whether I want to wear a mask or not, whether it's during a pandemic or in everyday life. I should be able to decide what medicines I put in my body, what I don't put in my body, whether I would
want to get an abortion or if I don't want to.
Exactly. Now, where the tricky social issues tend to arise is questions about agency. The anti-abortion movement would say, well, life begins at conception. Therefore, getting an abortion is not consistent with the agency point because it's a different life. Now, I'll leave that for another bioethical debate. So I believe that one should be able to be taller. One should be able to change genders. One should be able to change almost every aspect about one's body. And this is going to happen within our lifetime. Brain-computer interfaces, Elon Musk Neuralink, are going to become commonplace.
Yes.
And there's this sort of it's a very deep question. And I actually gave a speech at Trinity College Dublin, which is the sort of foremost university in Ireland, last week. And a very bright student said to me, what does it mean to be human? If we change our genders, if we change our heights, if we change our physiology, when do we cease being human and start becoming something else?
Gods.
Maybe gods. And I actually flipped that question around him because Ireland is a very multicultural place now. It's become very multicultural within the last 20, 30 years. And I said to him, what does it mean to be Irish? Does it just mean having an Irish passport? Or is there something deeper about being Irish? And I spoke to lots of the students that day, and no one could give me a firm answer. I don't think we know what it means to be human. We are slowly merging with machines now. We carry our smartphones around in almost a symbiotic relationship that's hard to sever. And then when we have brain-computer interfaces, when we have more and more different enhancement technologies, where will we draw the line and say, we are no longer human?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the answer is, and I also don't know how long we have until we decide that we have leveled up, or at least some members of the population have leveled up, because I do once again think this will affect the wealthiest first, and that they might actually hoard those abilities to make themselves special.
Yeah, and I worry about that too. I think that is a potentially pernicious consequence of human enhancement.
You have a word with your people. They seem to have a lot of control over what goes on for the rest of us. So you have a word with them about that.
I'll have a word with them about it, but I will also have a word with European health ministers, because I think the social welfare system that is able to deliver healthcare in a much more equitable way needs to survive long enough to deliver human enhancement technology.
One last thing I wanted to kind of bring up, though, is you mentioned like Brian Johnson's going to have to live a long time to prove himself right, right? So whatever. But the point of that is that the fact that health and longevity startups are dying off already, there's a lot of consolidation in the field already, tells me that, health is like transportation. It's not something that can just be VC backed and expect like a quick turnaround time with a huge ROI. It's not software, right? So how are you envisioning, like, what makes it different, your business, that it's still a VC backed business, but it's in an industry that has a slower growth timeline?
Well, we have very clear deliverables, right? We have clear KPIs, right? On a macro level, the simple question to ask was first, can we break a world record? Yes, we've done that already with Christian Golomev in the 50 freestyle. Can we break the major world records? The only one left is now the 100 meter, which I think Fred Kerley will do. Then it will be, can we break all the world records? And then it becomes very simple. The Olympics generate $4.5 billion in revenue per games. The Olympics have one customer, which is NBC. NBC pays that $4.5 billion to broadcast the games. NBC will not pay billions of dollars to broadcast an old, slow sporting event. They will pay that to broadcast a fast, modern sporting event. And then we capture that revenue and have the distribution then to capture hundreds of billions of dollars in revenue by selling human enhancement products.
Okay. So, and then again, do you have the product, the human enhancement products? Is that ready to go? Are you still working on it? Like, what are those products? What's your first one going to be?
It's going to be simple products like you can get from Hims, Hone, Roman, testosterone, other prescription-based weight loss products. Yeah.
Yeah. Ozempic. I think, what is it? 25% of Americans are projected to be on Ozempic, Wegovy, et cetera.
Yeah. And the GLP-1 drugs have added $1 trillion to the market capitalization of Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk. And so each human enhancement product is probably worth on the order of $1 trillion. We're not at the stage yet where we're doing our own research and development, but generating patentable delivery mechanisms and novel compounds is definitely on our agenda.
I mean, this industry, the longevity industry, I think in 2024, by some estimates, has already raised $8.5 billion in global investment. I expect that to increase this year by quite a large margin.
What I would say is that every age of mankind
humankind, please, Aron.
In humankind, every age in humankind since industrialization has been signified by one singular moment. So we might point to the start of the artificial intelligence age with the rise of ChatGPT, Sputnik with the launch of the space age. And I think that the age of human enhancement will begin when an enhanced athlete breaks that 100-meter world record, because it's going to be so clear that there's a category of superhumans who live among us, and that more and more of us will want to become those superhumans. And then just like the first tangible AI product has led to the hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars of investment in the sector now, the same thing will happen for human enhancement technologies. And we will realize that it's a multi-trillion-dollar industry, and we have first mover advantage in that space.
Well, I mean, love it or hate it, I think that one thing we can tell as sort of a bellwether for technologies that have the potential to take off is actually people's, revulsion towards it and anger about it. And we've seen that time and again. I mean, you compared enhanced games to, Uber for Olympics, whereas Olympics are the taxi cabs. Yeah, I'm not saying that necessarily means this is a win, but that means that there's a Venn diagram here and there's some overlap, right?
Yeah.
Between companies and industries that get disrupted.
Yeah, I think every great company is somehow very thought-provoking. Uber is actually tepid in comparison. I think the one I really like is Airbnb. Like, the idea of Airbnb is crazy. To stay in another person's house, instead of like a luxury Four Seasons hotel, you will choose just to stay in another person's house who you don't know, right? And the thought that women in particular are comfortable in using Airbnb still to this day is so mind-boggling that it is now perfectly commonplace to sleep in another person's bed in lieu of a beautiful, luxurious hotel. And,
To be
same
fair,
thing.
it's not really another person's bet anymore. Now it's just people who've bought property around the
Yeah,
world
exactly.
and then turn it into an
It's
Airbnb.
become,
It's basically a hotel.
it's basically a hotel
But I mean,
now.
hotels are coming back too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
But
mean, it's super disruptive, right?
yeah. And I think the same thing can be said of Facebook, a very bold and thought-provoking product in its early days. Obviously, ChatGPT, AI, everything, we're facing all these questions now. And the
Yeah.
fact that the deep incumbents, and the Olympic Committee is one of the deepest incumbents in the world, is so frightened by what we are doing, I think is highly indicative of our success.
Yeah, I wonder if they'll start, on the sly, letting their athletes dope up just to keep up. But that's a question for another time. We are about out of time. Aron, thank you so much for joining us. Is there anywhere that our listeners can find you online if they want to connect or follow your work?
If your listeners are interested, you can find me on Instagram, Aron D'Souza, or, I always give my email out. It's Aron, Aron at enhance.com. If any of your listeners are interested in collaborating or have any feedback or criticisms, please feel free to email me directly and I'll reply.
Well, thanks again for joining us. And to our listeners, you can find me on X and Blue Sky, and you can find Equity on those same platforms at Equity Pod. Talk to you next time.